In this video, we're going to be talking all about online classes, how they work, how you get paid, and what are the pros and cons. Today, we'll be comparing two specific online platforms, Skillshare versus Teachable. Coming up next. Welcome back, everybody. My name is Dee Burks, and this is Retirement Rescue, where we learn how to make money, save money, and live well in retirement. Well, today we're going to be talking about online classes. One of the ways you can make money in retirement, or even before then, is with online classes. It's a fabulous side gig. This is the kind of passive income that people love because once you get the class up and going, it pretty much runs by itself. Now, I used to teach continuing ed at Amarillo College, so I understand how to build a curriculum and how to teach classes. And I'm just now starting to get those writing classes that I used to do up online. Well, I picked two platforms to compare. One of them is Skillshare. Now, Skillshare is a subscription-based service. In other words, you pay a monthly fee and you get on there and you can look at any class you want to look at. As many as you want, as often as you want. So it's just a basic flat fee type of subscription service. The other platform I'm going to be using is Teachable. Now, Teachable is one of those platforms where they don't attract the customers. They don't attract the people who are wanting the education. Teachable just offers the space for you as an educator to put up a class, and then you do the work of selling it, of bringing the customers, and there are pros and cons to both models. But let's talk about how they work. Now, the classes on Skillshare tend to be between 20 and 50 minutes. And for those of you who have taught like writing seminars or lunch and learns, those sorts of things, that is a great platform for that kind of teaching. It's short, it's to the point. They encourage every class to be project-based, so every class will have a class project, and then they can move on to the next class. So they're not super in-depth classes necessarily. They tend to be a little bit lighter in content. The videos are broken up into 2 to 5 minute segments, and you just walk people through the class project. It's relatively easy to do. Whereas something like Teachable is much more for an in-depth class. If you've ever taught a college class or developed an entire curriculum for a subject like writing a book, that's what mine were about, then you understand how in-depth that is. You'll have multiple exercises, you'll have handouts, and there will be several projects. So it's a much more in-depth type of class. And there's a big difference in revenue because of that. Now, before we really get into the nitpicky pros and cons, let's talk about how the money works. How do you get paid? That's everyone's first question, and it's a good question because if you're going to put in all this work, you need to know how the compensation works. Well, with something like Skillshare, there's really two ways to get paid. One of them is you bring people to the platform and they sign up for a premium membership. You basically get a commission for that. In fact, there's a link below if you want to hop over and sign up for Skillshare, and that gives me $10 every time someone signs up. That's one way to earn revenue. The other way to earn revenue on Skillshare is through royalties. And this is how most subscription-based sorts of royalties work. Even Kindle Unlimited, if you have Kindle and you have Kindle Unlimited where you pay the monthly fee, this is how Kindle Unlimited works as well. But with Skillshare, you basically are paid on a per minute basis on every month that someone watches your class. So what happens is they take an aggregate of all the minutes that were watched for that month, and they also add up all the subscription money they received that month. And they will share 30 to 40% of that subscription money because they have set costs. So it's going to vary a little bit, but it's somewhere between 30 and 40% every month. That 30 to 40% is divided up by those minutes watched, and every minute amounts to a certain dollar amount. And depending on the number of minutes watched every month, you get compensated for that. So obviously it's going to vary depending on how many minutes are watched every month. Now realize it's a very competitive platform. So you'll have to be sharing your classes and telling people about your classes, bringing people to the platform if you want to grow that revenue. Skillshare states that the average revenue for the first month that a teacher has classes up or a class up is around $200. So you can kind of guesstimate, okay, how much work am I putting in? What am I going to get out? But like everything else, with Skillshare, you have to keep producing classes in order to keep receiving revenue. Because if you don't produce a class for a while, guess what? No one's watching your class anymore. They like new classes uploaded frequently. Their recommendation is every 2 to 6 months, because really you want to create a following for your classes. You want people to send other people to your classes. And that's what it takes. You're going to be growing a channel on Skillshare that is full of your classes and seminars. Now let's talk about Teachable. Teachable is very, very different because they're not bringing customers to the platform. You are. They're just providing the space for you to do really in-depth, value-added classes. So basically, they have several different plans. There's a free plan where you can upload classes and they take $1 plus 10% of the amount of your classes. You set the price, they don't. So let's just say you have a $100 class. They're going to take $1 plus 10%. Now they're also going to have a processing fee, like for credit cards and that sort of thing. It's between 2.5% and 4.5%, depending on if it's a foreign student or a domestic student. It's pretty technical, but anyway, you're going to lose somewhere between about 15%, let's say, of that amount that you charged, the $100, is going to go to Teachable. The rest of it comes to you, and they pay really quickly, within a week. I mean, you're getting money in your account and they're depositing it each week. With Skillshare, they wait till the month finishes and then it's several weeks later before you get a royalty payment. So realize there's a little bit different in payment schedules, but not much. I mean, it's not bad at all. They don't make you wait months and months, neither one of them. Now, Teachable has higher level plans. So basically, the more classes you're selling, you're going to get to the point, especially if you're doing more than just a few a month, where it pays you to get a higher level plan, because what happens is as the plan cost goes up, the commission goes down or it ceases to exist completely depending on your level of plan. There are also more options. One of the things about having a class like Teachable is, number one, you get to control it. You control the pricing, you control the promotion, you control so much of it. And one of the things you get to control is gathering information on your students. When you have a platform like Skillshare, you don't get to collect their emails, you don't get to market to them, all that. Skillshare does that, so you don't get that control. With Teachable, you do, especially on their higher level plans. You're able to collect emails, you're able to market directly to those students when you have a new class. It really enhances your potential revenue. So there are some very, very basic differences. Now let's talk about really specific pros and cons. Obviously with Skillshare, the biggest pro is it's easy. It's relatively short classes. There are things you can sit down and design and do really quickly. You get it filmed, you get it uploaded. They don't take a whole lot of effort to develop the class, especially if you already teach. If you teach a subject matter, if you're an expert in something, it doesn't take you that long to get something up on Skillshare and you can be earning. Another plus of Skillshare is they bring people to the platform from all over. All these other teachers are bringing people to the platform, and anybody on that platform can enter your class. They can become students of yours, even if you didn't bring them to the platform. So there are people constantly coming into Skillshare that are potential new students that you didn't have to pay to attract. For me, another pro of Skillshare is you can test ideas pretty easily. If you have an idea for a class, maybe a class you want to go really in depth on, but you're not sure if people would really be interested, well, Skillshare is a great way to test that out because it doesn't cost you anything to upload another class. You can try out different classes, you can try out different class projects and really see what people are interested in for free. And that's a great way to test things. And that's the thing with Skillshare. It is a great, no-cost, simple type of platform. But now let's talk about some of the cons. One of the minuses of Skillshare is it's a simple no-cost platform. So what that means is there's a lot of competition. It's just like if you write a book and you put that book on a bookshelf in a huge bookstore and people go in, and how are they supposed to find your book? There is a ton of competition. So you've got to really design your classes well. You've got to be hyper-focused. You've got to niche down really hard on the subject matter in order for people to watch your class as opposed to someone else's. It's very competitive. One of the bigger cons for me is you can't collect that email information to continue to market directly to people who already like your stuff. That is a huge downside because, you know, you're always having to attract new people instead of marketing to the same people who already like your stuff, and that would be so much easier. With Skillshare, it basically is focused toward people who already have a following. If you already have a big social media presence, if you've already taught classes and have people who know you as a teacher and who would be willing to jump on Skillshare and take your classes, it really tends to skew toward those people. If you're completely unknown, you've never done anything, it is free, but you're going to have to work really hard to get people to come and view your class. And of course, like with anything that is free and doesn't take a lot of effort, your pay is pretty limited. You can't make hundreds of thousands, even though they say on Skillshare their top teachers make up to $100,000 a year. Well, there are people who teach online classes who make $100,000 a month on Teachable. So really, there is a big difference as far as potential revenue. But it is a great way to get started, and it doesn't cost you much, and it doesn't take a whole lot of skills. You can really learn your craft, you can learn what you teach, you can get your skills sharpened, and then perhaps if you have a class that's pretty popular, you can extend it and create something on a platform like Teachable. Now let's talk about Teachable. One of the pros of Teachable is they don't have a limit on what you can produce. With Skillshare, you're limited to, the most you can upload is one class every 7 days, I believe. So they limit what you can produce. With Teachable, they don't. You can produce as many classes as you want because you're doing the marketing, you're doing the promotion. So if you want to get 7, 8 classes up, hey, that's your deal. Another pro is you get to set the price. So if you have a smaller class, like a memoir class, one of the classes that I'm going to be teaching, and you're going to charge $100 or $125 for it, you can do that. If you're going to have a very extensive novel writing class, which I already have, and it was an 8-week class, and each class was 3 hours a week, it was a big college course. And so that's going to be a much more expensive class, and I get to determine the pricing of those classes based on the value of those classes. I can also adjust the pricing, so I can offer a discount or a special one-time only kind of offering on Teachable that I can't on Skillshare. Of course, the biggest pro for me is the higher potential for revenue, because if I'm going to put a lot of work into something, I want there to be a potential upside for a lot of passive income. I also want something that's going to pay relatively quickly, because if I'm bearing the cost of promotion, I want to be able to pay those bills. And they do pay very quickly, and so those are big pluses to me. Other pluses are you're not directly competing with people on the same platform. Everybody's marketing their own stuff. So it's not like you're competing head-to-head with them. You market your classes in the way that you choose. Other people market their classes in the way they choose. And it's completely different. So you're not competing head-to-head with people, which allows you to maximize the amount of money you're making. You also have that ability to gather student emails and student information where you can create a huge following of students that are your students. So every time you bring a new class out, you maximize that revenue. You make a whole lot more money than just the little dab you would make over on Skillshare. Now let's talk about the cons of Teachable. One of them is cost. It costs more to be on the platform. They do have a free platform that you can start with, and that's a great place to start. Then you can move up to a basic where they get a percentage commission, and then they continue to allow you to move up where you get more options on the platform. The biggest con for most people is you have to do all the marketing and advertising. You have to understand how to do Facebook ads. You have to learn that. You have to learn how to do ClickFunnels and how to get people interested in your class, how to set up an ongoing revenue stream from advertising. And that advertising costs money. So you have to put out money up front. You're paying to be on the platform and you put out money up front. And so there are costs involved, as well as understanding how to market your class. Another thing that could be considered a con, I actually think it's a pro in my case, because I already have been in the collegiate environment, but knowing how to put together a curriculum for adult learners is not something that's super simple. It takes a lot of experience. It takes knowing what you're doing. It takes practice. That's why I encourage people to start with something like Skillshare if they haven't taught a lot of classes, so they can work those kinks out and then move over to Teachable. If you're already a teacher, you already have that skill set, you understand how to develop a good value-add curriculum, then you're way ahead of the game. Because that type of in-depth curriculum for a really premium class is going to take most people, if they have a full-time job, it's going to take most people between 4 and 6 months just to develop it. So that's not a small thing. It takes a whole lot more effort. But here again, the reward is much higher if you do a good job. When you look at comparing, and there are lots of online platforms for teaching, online learning is becoming a huge multi-billion-dollar industry. There will be more and more as we go along. These just happen to be the two that I'm trying out. And as we go along, I'll let you know how they do. We'll talk about what classes I put up, what kind of revenue streams they created, how easy it was or wasn't. We're going to go through all of that. So be sure and stay tuned as we go along, and hopefully we'll have a good outcome. We'll see. See you next video.